This video presentation is on New Orleans, a city unlike any other that you may visit. A soft, salty breeze blows, and Steamboat, the riverboat queen, can be seen making its way down the river just as the sun gleams through and the light fog that's on the river. The smell of coffee beans roasting and fresh bread baking is in the air, while the saxophone sounds out a familiar tune that we know as residents. The horn blows from Canal Street Ferry as the St. Charles streetcar passes by, and the sweet smell of jasmine brings back all the memories of my being raised in a city as colorful as New Orleans, named the Crescent City. For its crescent shape following along the banks of the Mississippi River, New Orleans is a city unlike any other. Take a walk down Decatur Street with me to Cafe du Monde and enjoy some fresh cafe au lait and beignets while listening to the street performers play some rhythm and blues or jazz on the sax. Then let's stroll on down to the French Market and make a deal with one of the 100 or so vendors that sells anything from fresh fruits and vegetables to leather bags and beautiful jewelry. Every street in New Orleans has something different to offer, from antiques to collectibles to restaurants and pubs. Take the children out to see City Park or maybe to Audubon Zoo. Take a streetcar ride down to St. Charles Street. Stop by the aquarium. There's so much to do in the city, the imagination just couldn't begin to explore the true beauty New Orleans has to offer. But before that you can appreciate what New Orleans has to offer, you must first understand what's behind the heartbeat that keeps this great city alive. It's the people, the culture, and the history that only the natives talk about. Discovered by the French in 1718, sold to the Spanish in 1763, and bought by the United States from Napoleon in 1803, New Orleans has become a very diverse city in culture and population. Originally named La Nouvelle Orleans in 1718 by Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne, Sieur de Bienville, founder of the high land near the mouth of the Mississippi River, New Orleans became America's first city of opera and was deemed the opera capital of North America in the 1800s. As population continued to grow from the late 1800s to the 1900s, the city expanded along the Mississippi River basin to form what is now known as the Crescent City. But the city was not without scars from the influx of growth. In the early 1900s, a devastating fire burned most of the buildings and homes in the city. And without adequate drainage, sewerage, and clean water, the city became plagued with diseases like the yellow fever epidemic that claimed the lives of over 8,000 people. The people of New Orleans are very resilient, though, and through the darkness came a light known as jazz. Jazz is a recipe like putting together a good homemade gumbo. Imagine walking down the street and everywhere, on every street corner, there's a musician that's playing the music that makes you feel happy and alive and just full of spirit. Everywhere you look, you see the people dancing in the streets, touched by the joyous revolution known as New Orleans jazz. It's the only place that I know of where everything is considered a reason to celebrate, expressing their feelings through music and through dance, flooding the streets with jubilation. In New Orleans, music is as much a part of death as it is a part of life. A distinguishing mark of New Orleans culture is the jazz funeral. The practice of having a musical celebration dates back to the early 18th century, where brass bands were called upon to play professional music, and later when the jazz became a staple like red beans and rice, so did the jazz funeral celebration. The procession starts in the street, marching toward the cemetery, playing slowly, "Nearer, my God, to Thee." Then, once the casket is placed into the vault, everyone begins to leave, and they follow the band with the song. The band's leading the crowd out with the song "The Saints Go Marching In," honoring the life of a loved one who has died, honoring them through celebration, music, and dance is an important part of the custom of New Orleans, and not one to be taken lightly. Businesses close, people stop on the roadway, and complete strangers have been known to come together with everyone else as they're marching down the street of New Orleans to the cities of the dead. The trumpets are blowing, the street performers are tap dancing, and the sweet smell of jasmine is in the air. Diverse culture can be seen everywhere you look, from the building tops to the dinner tables. History of this old town is at every corner and every building. The old Opera Palace has gleaming lights displaying the next performance. Canal Street has lights as far as you can see, and the streetcars that pass by are filled with the faces of joyous people. New Orleans is famously known for its attractions. Bourbon Street is the last place that, as a first-time visitor, you would want to come. So, what would be some of the best places to see in New Orleans? Well, let me share with you some of my favorite places and let you decide where you would like to visit. Let's begin this journey at the center, where it all began with the signing of the Louisiana Purchase and what is now known as the Cabildo. This museum held some of the oldest documents in Louisiana's history, preferably in New Orleans history. It's where the Louisiana Purchase was signed by Napoleon in 1803, and the first City Hall of New Orleans, as well as the Supreme Court, was located. Unfortunately, in 1988, a fire destroyed a good portion of the Cabildo, including all of New Orleans history documents. The museum reopened later in 1994 with a focus on primarily Louisiana history instead of New Orleans history because of documents being destroyed. Now, next door is St. Louis Cathedral, designed by Gilberto Guillemot, whom also designed the Cabildo and the Presbytere. This cathedral is located in the middle of Jackson Square and is the oldest functioning cathedral in the United States. Originally built in 1721, it succumbed to fire and was completely destroyed. The second cathedral was built and put into service on Christmas Eve of 1794. Today, as you're walking through the entrance doors, prepare to have your breath taken away by the grandeur of this hand-painted ceiling art, its stained glass windows, and white pillar columns that are in the center of the cathedral. And if that doesn't take your breath away or grab your attention, the ceiling to floor, wall to wall, beautiful organ that was imported in 1829, that certainly will. Now, as you leave the cathedral, you walk through the gates that surround a grand statue of General Andrew Jackson on his bronze horse, originally called La Place d'Armes by the early French settlers, now is known as a National Historic Landmark and has been designated as one of America's greatest public places. Now, to the left and to the right, along the alleyways, this is known as St. Anne Street. Merchants and street performers gather together to entertain the public. Take a moment and reflect on the beauty of the cathedral that's right behind you as the bells chime according to the hour of the day. Then let's proceed across the street, and we're going to go to Cafe du Monde, a very famous place. And here is where they serve coffee, which is a unique coffee, Cafe au lait. It's served with beignets, which has brown sugar, powdered sugar on top. This is where families come together and they reminisce about old times. They share memories and laugh. Our lovers will cuddle up in the corner somewhere and share warmth from the hospitality in the coffee that is served. Now, jazz is often performed while you sit there and relax, enjoy the good cup of coffee, cafe au lait, or maybe even some hot cocoa. As you take a bite of that beignet, it is custom that as you're taking that bite, you blow that powdered sugar towards someone that you love. Now that you are energized from that coffee that you just had, it's time for us to go to the French market and do some haggling. Now, in the French market, the merchants are accustomed to all the locals doing the haggling. The entrance of the French market was built in 1791, and it is the oldest public market in the United States. It played a huge historical role in the economy of New Orleans. From the food and music to the arts and crafts, the French market is truly a unique experience. It's a giant flea market where if you look hard enough and long enough, you can find anything that you're looking for. But before you agree to purchase, just remember to do some haggling. Now let's give your legs a break and take a ride on the streetcar. Now have a seat by the window, and I want you to enjoy that fresh air as you go down St. Charles Street toward the Audubon Zoo. Take in the beauty of some of the oldest historical homes down St. Charles Street. Take a moment, smell the flowers, wave at the passerbys, relax, and enjoy the ride. Now, once at Audubon Zoo, explore America's greatest zoo of over 58 acres to walk and over 2,000 animals to see. While there, I want you to climb up the top of Monkey Hill, which happens to be the highest elevation in the city of New Orleans. Enjoy the plants, enjoy the experience of being with these animals and hands-on being able to pet them. And before you leave, be sure to see the alligators. On the back side of the zoo is where you're going to catch the Riverboat Queen. So get on the Riverboat Queen and head back up the Mississippi River toward Canal Street, back into the French Quarter. As you can see, New Orleans is more than just Bourbon Street partying and nightlife. New Orleans has grown from a small colony into a large, thriving city with vibrant historical history behind it, resilient people, and of course, good food. Through the very brief tour that I've brought you through, you were able to visit some of the oldest historical landmarks in the United States. You learned about one of the oldest operating cathedrals in America, and where the Louisiana Purchase was signed. New Orleans isn't just the birthplace of New Orleans jazz, or opera, or even poker. It's where people come together of character, determination, and hospitality. This is where they are born. It's a city where people celebrate life and death alike. It's also where people come together in tragedy, rebuild a stronger, more united place to live. Well, maybe now, with this slight glimpse of New Orleans through my eyes, you can understand why it's a city unlike any other that you may visit.